Our first session is going to be on pathways. And this is going to be presented by Kelly Knowles. Kelly joined Toastmasters in 2017 and obtained her CC. She's a lifelong speaker who's always seeking to get better. She's a vice president of education for 2 clubs, BBS Toastmasters and Skyline Racketeurs. She loves helping people discover, develop, and dig into their greatest potential. Please do send her feedback via email. She's always looking to get better. And before I go ahead and hand it off to her, let me tell everybody right now, this is going to be super important. This training today is all being recorded. All of the sessions are going to be recorded, and all of the breakout sessions are going to be recorded. If you are a member of 2 different clubs and are 2 different officer roles, like you're the president of one club and you're the secretary of the same club or a different club, you will not be able to get credit for both trainings today. However, because all of the breakout sessions are being trained, all you need to do is send me a note or send Bert a note to send you the link to the other training. It's about an hour. If you watch it, then you're going to get credit for all of it. If you have any questions, please let us know. Feel free to chat with us. And everybody, I'm probably going to ask everybody to say here so we can take a roll call of everybody. We're also going to do screenshots, so everybody is going to be captured today. With that housekeeping, I think that's all done. Make sure that you're always on mute unless you've got a question and you're called upon. Without further ado, it is 9:04 and I'm going to introduce Kelly Knowles, our first speaker with Pathways. Take it away, Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. Kristen, thank you. I am incredibly excited to be with you all this morning. Bert did a great job while I was sipping on my coffee and wiping hairspray out of my contact of playing some Bruno Mars. So we have had a great start to the morning, and I hope that I can continue the energy. So I'm going to share my screen, and then if I could just get some feedback that you all can hear me okay, see my screen, and make sure I don't have anything in your visual way. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. So welcome to a quick overview of pathways. If you've heard me speak about pathways before, let me warn you, I am not your typical pathways teacher. I really think about things from a practical, how do I get in there, how do I get it done perspective. So if you are looking for all the nitty gritty, we've got time at the end of my presentation. Kristen has allotted time for Q&A, and I'm going to look for those of you that love to dig into those nitty gritty details to be sure and share your expertise. One of the things that I talk about both in my personal and professional life is we are better together. We learn from each other. So I'm never going to be pretending that I am the know-it-all. I know all about pathways. No way. What I want to show you is a quick overview. So my intent here is to give you some very detailed, specific slides to get you started in pathways. Then we'll jump over to the Toastmasters website. Because of all the updates that they're doing, I just didn't want to risk going straight to the website because there's some general delays. So I've got a PowerPoint that I put together that we're going to walk through. Before we start though, I'm going to ask you to take a moment here on this Saturday morning while you're sipping your coffee or your hot chai, whatever your beverage of choice is, and ask yourself the why. Why did you join Toastmasters? Now, that may sound like a cheesy question, but when you go back to that, it gets your motivation fired up again. Just this week, I forced myself to cut the chain and do another icebreaker for that second path that we were offered last year. And y'all, I have to tell you, it motivated me. It motivated me to get in there and dig in more and get my path started again. For me, my why was this. I wish I had joined Toastmasters more than 25 years ago. I'd always been told, Kelly, you're great at getting in front of people and speaking. But what I was terrified of is, what if I'm not any good? What if I'm not any good? So I wanted to join Toastmasters for decades. And I finally said, forget it. The year my father passed, I made some decisions, and Toastmasters was one of them. For me, I had to accept, you know what if you're not that good? You just get better. And that is my proposal to you today. If you've put off doing pathways, if you're like, I don't want to go there, Thank goodness we have those fields like neuroplasticity that proves what a lot of us have been saying a long time ago. We can get better no matter what. So, just a little bit of thought to get your brains moving this morning. So, when we think about a quick overview of pathways, I believe it's a fantastic way for professional development. A lot of our organizations, if we're still working in corporations, I know I am, the training dollars have been cut. As a trainer, trust me, I feel it. So, this is a fantastic way to really think about how you can economically continue your professional development. The sky is the limit on this. There are 5 levels and 11 paths. So when you start to pick through this, if you haven't chosen a pathway or you're still kind of trying to figure out how to get around, and I promise you we'll go into that, just know this, there are 11 paths, which within each path are 5 levels. Quick steps, you're going to take the assessment, pick a path, and get started. Now, let me make a note about the assessment. For me, the assessment gave me a suggested path. I did not choose what was suggested. Remember, you're in charge. So if you say, you know what, I really know that I want the strategic relationship path, and it suggests to you the persuasive influence path, you decide. As a matter of fact, shameless plug for your VPEs out there, talk to your VPE. I've done several one on ones with members who have said, help me talk through which path I want. So that's something as VPE you can really add some value to your club is take that time and take a consultative approach with your members. It helps some of us are verbal processors and we need a chance to just kind of talk through what we're looking for. Some pro tips for navigation. Basecamp, when we get into this, is a separate web link. So be aware of that. And there is a special screen. The person that taught me Pathways helped me figure this out. Game changer. And there is a special screen I'm going to show you that I hope will help you in navigating pathways. So if you're kind of rolling your eyes going, oh, pathways again, bear with me. My hope is to take the pain out of it. So how do you get started? You're going to go to www.toastmasters.org, and then going into that second tab, you're going to choose pathways after you log in. Choose a path. Then it's going to ask you how you would like to access your materials. Now, I like doing everything in digital form. There are some things I like to print, but let me just offer to you. You can go ahead and choose digital resources. There are multiple places throughout Pathways where you can download a PDF. And then if you need to print it, if you need that paper in your hand, you can still print it. So it is, to me, a faster, cheaper, better way of accessing your resources. Again, you're in charge. I'm not. That is just my suggestion. So my suggestion is select the digital resources. You still have opportunities to print. And Kristen and Bert, please feel free to interrupt me at any point during this in terms of time frame, as well as if there's really specific questions. I want to make sure to keep everyone engaged and to take care of you guys this morning. So how would you like to select your learning path? I mentioned this earlier. If you know that you know that you know you want the effective coaching path, I am good with that. However, the reason I would still encourage you to take the online assessment is just to get your brain thinking. I've had people come back to me and go, I was convinced that this was the path that I wanted, but once I took the assessment, it asked me some probing questions, and it will ask you some questions, and it helped me to reconsider. Again, you're in charge. So if you take the assessment, it gives you a suggestion. You don't have to accept that. You can choose whatever path you want. But I always encourage, especially new members or people who have kind of gotten away, you missed those manuals. I get it, that you've just kind of gotten away from this whole learning process within Toastmasters. Take the online assessment. It will get your brain moving. When you choose a path, you're going to compare if you wanted to. So, for example, I have a screenshot up here of 3 of the paths, and you can actually learn more about it before you select it. So, you'll notice there's that little plus sign, learn more about the presentation mastery path. For those of you who have spent a lot of time in pathways, and I know a lot of you are out there are detail oriented, I hope that when we do the Q&A, you will speak to some commonalities, because there are commonalities in each of these paths. There are certain projects within the various levels that are very similar. Every single path, the first project is an icebreaker. Just like when you started out with your competent communicator, those many years ago for some of you, every single one of these is going to begin with an icebreaker. So you're going to see some commonalities, and then it's going to get into the minutia. The way that I like to describe this is if you chose to go to for example, to a 4-year, 2-year, some sort of higher education, you probably remember starting out with your basics. You had to kind of get those basics down, and then you were able to move into the electives, all of those things that you found of interest. And I kind of think of pathways as that as well. It's kind of giving you some foundational basics like an icebreaker, and then you're moving into the guts, the nitty gritty of that path that you chose. When you get in there, this is what the assessment looks like. So you're going to take the assessment. You can choose your language. One of the things I absolutely, sidebar, because I chase squirrels, love about Pathways is that, and about Toastmasters, is y'all, this has made my bubble bigger. If you ever have a chance to visit Skyline Raconteurs, please do. We have a group it has done more for my personal development in understanding the world around me than anything else I've ever encountered. And so if English is not your first language, check it out. You can choose a different language for your assessment. All right. Your next piece is going to Basecamp. What is Basecamp? It is your starting point. It is where you go to work on your path. So kind of a quick rehash. You're going to take the assessment. Again, you don't have to do what it tells you that it would recommend. If you do, great. Secondly, you're going to choose your path. And then to move into it, to really get into your path, to see what it's all about, you're going to move into Basecamp. So once you've chosen your path going forward, when you log into the website, just hit go to Basecamp. Now, in the center, this is the piece that I want to point out for those of you like myself who are members of more than one club. You can choose which club you want to work through. On the right side, for those of you that have to read all the details, you read the manual before you put something together, okay? I don't. That is the navigator, and the navigator is going to go into all of the review. So if you think about your personal style, this is why I'm pointing this out, because some people have to know exactly how the sausage is made before they slice it and take a bite. And I respect that. So if that is your piece, the navigator is the place to go. In the center is where I'm driving us today. So I'm going to go to Basecamp after I pick my club. If you're just in one club, you'll just choose that one club. And then you'll notice right here where it says paths and learning. Now, let me pause here. Everything that I haven't highlighted on this screen is all the additional details. So again, if you want to go in and look at the tutorials, you want to look at the resources, you want to do some gamification, that's a term that came out about 5 years ago or so, and you like to do badges and see those electronic badges, over on the right is where you can request feedback from your club members. I'm actually going to do that this week because I did an icebreaker and I want some more feedback. I'm really looking to get better. I'm looking to get better. And then you have badges and documents. Now, this is something that I love. I love that you can actually upload your evaluations, and here is a storage place. Now, some of you print it out, put it in that traditional file folder, in that traditional file cabinet in your home, and that's great. Some of us are a Google Drive. That's where I put things. But if you want kind of a central housing place for your stuff, then you can put that in My Documents. Again, you can go into speech evaluations. And let me point this out. In retrospect, I probably should have highlighted this. One of the things that I've noticed is people will do speeches and they don't often have their evaluation form. And then they were not quite sure where to find it. If you're a VPE or you're the Toastmaster for the day and you know the speeches that are going to be happening, right here, the second square that says speech evaluations, this is where you can find all of the evaluation forms. They are PDFs and they are fillable. And so if you've got any kind of basic PDF software, I have found that they're pretty easy to fill out. And then you can just save them and email them to the person that you've evaluated. What a great way to get that instant, immediate feedback. So if you are leading a club meeting that night and your person doesn't have their form, we're doing things so busy. How many of you are distracted right now? I mean, we're what, 10 minutes in? It's okay. I totally get it. And I've turned my phone down. I've put the do not disturb on, all the things. The reason I say this is sometimes we are flying into a Toastmasters meeting, whether virtually or live, and we haven't even thought about the form that we need to do our speech because we might be nervous about it. So, as someone who's leading the meeting that night, I just want to add in this is where you can go and quickly download and get that form for their speech. So you can do your member a solid and add value there. All right, back to place. Then you'll notice paths and learning. So you've logged in, you've gone to Basecamp. Now we are at paths and learning. There is a lot of ways to click into this program, y'all. More than one way to get the job done. And what I want you to notice is I choose to click on open curriculum. If I click on some of the other places, I get confused. It throws me into different places and I don't understand it. You'll also notice I have two paths. So that's why there's more than one thing listed. So I'm going to choose open curriculum, for example, for the effective coaching path. I've actually finally got level 1 done in that. I'm proud of myself. And then you're going to notice that it lists right here where you're at. So you get a real visual of your progress in the path. So you'll see when I put together this presentation, I was at about 42% of levels. And I was at level 2. I'm working in level 3. Remember me giving that college analogy? This is what I was talking about. I'm now into my electives. And I will be very frank with you. I struggled with this because I wanted to do all the electives. And then I kind of start thinking about my time and all of that. But the electives were really getting exciting to me. And so I just wanted to point that out. Now, I don't think there's any rule that says you can't do all the electives, but you kind of have to think about your time as well. So you're going to notice that one of the electives I've chose was making connections through networking. And then I can choose to launch it. I've already activated this elective. So if you think about your steps, if you're taking some notes for your clubs, you choose the elective, then you choose activate. And this is going to be your MO every single level. Okay. So in this case, I'm choosing launch. And then this is the special screen. If you get nothing else out of your time with me this morning, please make note of this. And I mean this wholeheartedly with great emphasis. One of the things that I struggled with in doing this electronic stuff was I love technology, but I was like, just get me to the end goal. I'm an end goal person. Get me to where I need to go to get this thing fired off. Okay. So if you will, at the very bottom of that screen, there is a drop down, select to move to another section. Go to the section that says your evaluation. To me, this is your sweet spot because here's what it's going to do. It's going to give you that 50,000-foot view of everything for this specific project. And you can just then go back through all the screens. But this to me is your sweet spot. By the way, if you say, Kelly, I print everything, I still love paper. Okay, you're in charge, not me. This is where you can print a PDF or download a PDF that looks like those old school manuals. Okay. So that is something that I will do every time. I'm not printing it, but I do download that manual PDF. And then I just skim through it to kind of see where am I headed in this. This is where, to me, your sweet spot is when you're navigating through your level. I want to pause here because I want to make sure I've got everyone with me. Are there any questions or comments in the chat I should be aware of? Okay, I see Kristen shaking her head. And Kristen, I've kind of kept my faces where you are since we have so many people on the call. All right, next step, y'all, is when you go to that sweet spot, this is the piece that I wanted you to see. Over on the right, you've got two things. One is your evaluation resource. That's the form you're going to send to whoever's going to evaluate you for this project, whether it's a speech, whatever it is that you need to do for this one. And then if you go to print my project, the one below, this is where you can get the visual of the manual. So my next screen shows you this. Here we go. We've got a 16-page manual for this particular project, Inspire Your Audience. And you can download that. print, do whatever it is that makes you happy. I'm actually doing some side training with a client of mine. She and I are doing an education process together. And she cracks me up because everything that we do, I've got it sitting on my other screen and she has shot it off to Staples. And then she holds up on the screen her perfectly bound full color manual. And I just love it because we all have different styles. That's what works for her. And so know your style, work within your strengths. So going back to this for a moment, something I want to call out here is, well, Kelly, how do I get back to where I started? We're going to go into that, but I want you to notice these arrows right here to the left and right. This is how you move back and forth through the screens. And this has become ubiquitous if you've done anything electronically lately, if you read magazines online, if you're looking at articles online, those arrows are very common. It's just like that little diskette. How many of us have seen a floppy disk in the last 20 years? And don't tell me you have them in your attic, because then we might have to sit together and talk. So the reason that I want you to notice is transfer your learning. As you get used to looking for certain symbols and icons, you're going to find out Toastmasters and non-Toastmasters, these are similar icons. For those of you who are e-learning designers, I know you know this stuff like the back of your hand. So just something to call out from a navigation perspective. Okay, so that's what your manual is going to look like. And then we stop. I'm going to stop right here because for some reason, the screen sharing got stopped. Let me try this again. Sorry for the hitch there, y'all. That was really strange. It's just gone away. All right, well, that is fine because we've gotten through the main pieces of the pathway. I'm not sure why that stopped on that screen, but I'm not going to worry about it. So let me just stop here, and I'm going to stop my share, and let me field questions that you all have. I'm going to go ahead and actually log into the Toastmasters site. Where have you found have been your biggest questions about accessing pathways, your glitches, or what you have learned are your sweet spots for navigating? Give me some feedback and we'll look at the website as well.
Kelly, this is Bert.
Yeah.
I've noticed that time and again, every time there's a problem, everybody goes, it's pathways, it's pathways, it's pathways. It's because they didn't do the two important things that you should have highlighted before that. And it's also in every single manual, the assessment before and the assessment after. If you don't do that assessment before and after, you will never get credit for doing that speech. And that holds up more people than anything I've ever seen.
Bert, thank you. So one of the things that I think I'll tie into what you said is when you're navigating those screens, and I'll go into one of my paths and we'll take a visual of this, it asks you to take an assessment. And I will tell you, I actually had that same issue myself because, again, you're probably reading the manual and I'm just going in there and driving. But one of the things that I thought is, well, why do I have to take the assessment? So we can look at that two ways. And so, Bert, follow up with me on this. But one of the things that I would encourage you to do, even if it's just the icebreaker part, and you're like, I just got to slide through these screens to get to the icebreaker, is do give yourself a moment to take the pre-assessment and the post-assessment in the project. One of the pieces that I did was one on consensus building. And it was a whole process on the difference between consensus and compromise. And y'all, I learned a lot. And so when I did that pre-assessment for that part of my effective coaching path, it really opened my eyes that I didn't fully understand the nuances of the difference between consensus and compromise. It was a great learning. So let me just back up for 2 seconds, and Kristen, help keep me accountable on time since I know we're moving into the 9:30 hour. I'm going to log in to my actual Toastmasters. And as you can see, I call all electronics Ethel. Ethel's a little slow. I'm going to go to Basecamp, and I'll just choose for here. And then I'm going to open my curriculum. So one of the things that I'm actually going to go back, I want to look into the strategic relationships one. Let's see if it'll let me go back. It may not.
While you're doing that, Kelly, we did have a question about
Mhm.
if they're not going for the DTM,
Yeah.
what can they do like the CC manual? Well, guess what? You can speak forever on one path. There are hundreds and hundreds of speeches in there, and just because you complete a path doesn't mean you can't. I've done it numerous times, and I'm on my 5th path now. And you know, if sometimes you do a speech and you don't exactly have the right thing, you can actually go in there and find it, but then you might have to do another path to get credit for it. But you can go forever in pathways. You can keep going the same speech over and over and over and over. I hope that answers your question, Robert.
Thank you, Bert. So let's go
Kelly,
into, yeah.
oh, sorry, it's Michelle Holden. Good morning, and
Mhm.
you're doing such a great job. Can I ask you one question? I'm on my 3rd pathway, and one of the things that can be a little sticky for me is after you've finished, you've gone down and you're trying to then finish up the whole pathway. Sometimes you can't get it to move into I'm done phase. I can't get that very last piece finished where you're in action oriented or whatever it is that you've got to go. It just won't let me finish the pathway.
So let me do 2 things. One, I'm probably not going to answer this adequately for the entire group, but I would love it if you want to shoot me an email. We'll fix up a time to do a one-on-one. We'll share screens. One of the things that I've learned is be aware of your browser and potential pop-up blockers. I've dealt with that. That may be what I'm dealing with a little bit this morning, but I will be very transparent. I don't like resetting up my personal laptop all the time. I have to do something like this. So I'm on my firm laptop where I work. And so sometimes I deal with pop-up blockers. And one of the things just to be aware of is sometimes there may be a pop-up blocker that could be kind of stopping that process. Let me add one more thing, and I'm sure whoever's doing the VPE of education training today will speak to this. There are 2 places the VPE has to go to kind of confirm the path for that person. They do it in Basecamp, and then they actually do it on the Toastmasters website. So Michelle, that may not be completely germane to your question, but we'll pick through this for a moment. But for those of you who are VPEs or you're helping out your VPE, be aware of that. There's a process in Basecamp that you have to do, and then you've actually got to go into the Toastmasters website and do another thing so that that level kind of gets set in for that person. So where you start to see those letters behind their names, for example, EC1, etc. So hang with me, Michelle. Let's see if we can drive through this. One of the things that I want to show you all, back to what Bert was talking about, is I finished up this level last night because I wanted to be able to show you all this. In the second piece of my level 1, I just started this pathway, strategic relationships. So I finished my icebreaker. I went in, and as Bert said, I did my post assessment. And I will be very transparent, Bert. I'm so glad you called this out. I thought it was a Toastmasters, like just wanting feedback thing, and I almost didn't do it. So I really do appreciate you pointing that out because I almost didn't do it. And I thought, just do it, follow the process. Now, part 2, I'm going to go into my next piece for my level 1 project. And notice I'm going to choose activate. Now, some people do this drop down and choose that. I don't know. I'm just going to hit activate. And then I'm going to choose launch. And when I launch it, you'll notice that it loads and I've got a new browser tab open. So if you're a little uncomfortable with the whole interweb thing, just kind of take a look at what's happening at the very top of your screen so you can get a feel for your breadcrumbs, because you're going to notice I have the open curriculum tab, and then here is the pathways. And as you can see, things are a little delayed, but now we're in a live one. So we're not in those PowerPoint screens like I had before. So take a look. Remember me talking about your sweet spot. So if I click this drop down and I go to your evaluation, this is where you can go to all of your resources. Oh, and surprise for Kelly, there are 2 speeches in this project. So how do I get back? Again, those arrows, or navigationally, click the drop down, go back to the very beginning to introduction. Now, one more thing that I want to show you all is when you hit introduction, I'm getting a weird sound. I don't know if that's me or something else.
Brushing their teeth.
Can you mute yourself, please?
Thanks, y'all. So as you'll notice, all of these pieces, you'll see I'm going through introduction. And then let me show you what just happened. When this happened to me the first time, I had a moment. I'm like, I can't get to my screens. Nothing will move. You know, some of us we got to put our patience pants on daily, hourly, by the minute. So I want to show you this. If you see this lock up here, what's happened is somehow I've managed to click in the directions section. It sounds so random. Some of you are going to like, duh, Kelly, but trust me, I had a moment. If you just click directions again, it unlocks you and you get back to moving between your screens. But when you click on directions, this gives you more information. Click it again, and you're back to moving through your screens. A few nuances. I've noticed the driving of this has changed slightly since Pathways came out. So if you are someone by the book, you've got your 5 points written down on your list, and it doesn't work exactly the way that you wrote it 2 months ago, give yourself some grace. They may have made some tweaks. So just be aware of some of those pieces. Always look for your arrows, for your underscores that tell you there's more there, for those drop downs. And then often things like this, it's a toggle. Think of it as an on-off switch and just toggle back and forth. Let me pause there and speak to what kinds of questions you have, because I also want to be mindful of our time.
Wendy Lick here. There was that question earlier about finishing up the path and getting stuck on that. One person who contacted me with a problem with that, he had finished level 5 and wanted to complete the path, but he couldn't get to that final, what I learned on my journey kind of project. And the problem was that he knew he wasn't finished with his path, so he didn't want to mark that he was completed and get credit for it without having done the work. He was being very honest. And he didn't understand that the navigation had changed since Pathways first rolled out. And now you go ahead and finish level 5, you get credit for it from your Basecamp manager, and then you do path completion as a separate step. And that has that final project there. So don't feel shy about completing level 5 and getting credit for it. It won't give you credit for the whole path. You've still got that final project to do, but that will let you move forward.
That is gold, what you just said. Is that documented anywhere where we can reference that?
I don't know if they did any rollout on that or not. I just kind of noticed it at some point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And
that makes
Kelly, this is Bert again.
Yeah.
Butting in, but one of the things I did notice is I completed even a sub-level in here. And I think my VPE was on vacation. And because I was also an officer in there, I can't okay my own stuff. I had to go to somebody else to complete that. So this is all covered in the VPE section, but every level that you finish, not just the path, you have to wait for your VPE sometimes to give you the okay. And I know sometimes they're out of town, and I had to drop a letter to the other president, and I said, hey, I finished this on such and such, and she went in and changed it.
Yeah.
So give your VPEs a little slack, because sometimes they're kind of busy, and realize that there's a couple people that can help you, not just your VPE.
That's great, Bert. Thank you. That's good information. What have we missed, y'all? What is it that you feel like, Knowles, you should have covered this in Pathways? This is what I need to know. This is what's missing. Or how can we better help you and your club members? What's on your mind?
Kelly, how about uploading the evaluation forms?
Okay. So let's go to home.
Kelly, could you hold for one moment while you're there?
Sure.
Could you just go into there and go to the part where it's asking for the assessment on that particular project?
Yeah, let's see if it does. Because I went in and launched it, Bert.
Yeah. And this is the part that so many people miss, because they do what you do. They get the PDF, they do the speech, they get the evaluation, but they don't go in and do the preliminary and the final assessment.
Yeah, I do all that. I just want my PDF first. Okay, so let's move into it. So you're talking about this assessment right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And this is what, Bert, thank you for bringing this back up, and then we'll go back to the upload document. This is what I almost didn't do on some of my icebreakers because I thought, man, I just want to get through it. So there is a pre-assessment where you assess your skills before, you walk through the screens, and then at the very end, you'll go through the post. So Bert, thank you for bringing that back up. So I'm going to go back to open curriculum. I'm actually going to log out and log back in real quick.
And when you're ready, Kelly, we've got a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay. All right, so here we are kind of at that main dashboard that I spoke to earlier. Remember speech evaluations where you get the forms, and then paths and learning is where you can go in and open curriculum. Over here where it says My Documents, this is something I haven't done, obviously, but you can go in, actually it looks like I did one. You can look at each one of your levels, but if I go to My Documents, you'll see that I uploaded a speech evaluation from March. And it looks like March from a couple years ago. That's why I haven't remembered it. And so right here is where you'll choose add file, and then you'll choose select a file. You'll go out to your computer, and I don't even know if I've got anything. You know what? I'll just grab the agenda for today. I'll click on open, and then I'll choose add. And now I've added that file to my documents. Kristen, did that speak to the question that you had?
Yes, it sure did.
Okay, awesome.
And then there's a couple of other questions too.
Okay, good.
Are you ready?
Ren, you are.
Elizabeth said there are 2 steps to approve it, Basecamp and Club Central. Can you show us how to do it in Club Central?
Good. All right. You are you're putting me through my paces. I love this. So I don't know if I've got anything in here to approve, but let's do it. So if we go to Leadership Central, then you're going to notice that I'm on the main Toastmasters page right here in Club Central. And y'all, if you're new officers, there's nothing that's coming out and smacking your hands. Get in here and pick around. It is tremendous. It's sometimes overwhelming, quite frankly, how much information Toastmasters provides to you. Don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel, but go into some of these pieces, such as Club Central, into Club Officer Tools. There is a bevy of information out here for you. So I'm going to go into Skyline Rack and Tours, and you will see a few things. You'll see where you can add in membership. All of us are probably at the point we've got to go in and update our rosters. I know that I've got to go in and help my new presidents update the club officers for this next year coming up. Next week? I can't believe it's July. So right here where you see Submit Education Awards, if you've got a member who has submitted something, or you know what, I'm just going to see if it will let me pick myself. It doesn't look like it will. But if you have a member that needs to be assigned something, you would first select their path, and then I won't actually award this. You can review the award submission. Now, I'm not going to do that, but that's where you'll go in to do that. So again, back to where I was, Leadership Central, Club Central, Submit Education Awards. You're going to choose your member, and then it's going to give you a drop down of your options. So it looks like, for example, this member has these 2 paths that they are enrolled in: Innovative Planning and Presentation Mastery. Sidebar, I think Presentation Mastery is the one that is almost always the suggested path when you do the assessment. And some people want it. So there you go.
Hey, Kelly.
Yeah.
Nick asked a question, and you are kind of getting into the specifics of a position. We're trying to keep this general.
Fine.
And Anna and Analia had a question. She had her hand raised in the participants. So if you want to, Anala, if you want to ask your question, there you go.
Yes, thank you very much. You were Kelly in another screen, and you talked about you can complete your assignment and then go back and do one more step. And I was a little confused, because if you have the check mark there, is that an indication that you've completed that entire project, or do I need to still go back and do that last part? I don't know where you were, but I think it was something talking about the strategic.
Let me see if I can drive that for you. So I'm going to go into strategic relationships. which is one of the
Yes.
paths that I've chosen, and I'm going to open curriculum. So I want you to notice I have finished my icebreaker. What does that mean? I did the speech, I did the pre and post evaluation. I went in and marked all of that complete. And so now I have that check mark.
So when you have that check mark, that is an indication that you've done everything in that path. There's nothing else that you need to go back and do.
That's the
Okay,
way
because
I
I thought that
understand
I
it as
heard you
well.
say that you had to do you could get that check mark and then there was still something missing, but there isn't.
And
So
now
here's where I think the confusion came in, and I will be very transparent with you. I haven't finished a path, so I haven't driven this, and that's why I asked if there was documentation anywhere. When you have completed all 5 levels, and you've got all of this showing you're done, and then you go into the path completion. I believe we had someone, I want to say it was Wendy, but if I got your name wrong, please forgive me, that said there's a couple of extra steps that have changed. And that is where I think you've got extra to do. And so hopefully we'll be able to get at least some documentations out to the VPEs to help people know this, because that is the piece that it sounds like Pathways has changed a little bit about how it drives. But I will offer, as you travel through each one of these projects in the level, it's nothing insane as far as finishing it. Make sure you do all your assessments, anything that pops up. And then at the very bottom, what you'll do is you will finish all the process, and then there's kind of a point where the VPE, and if the VPEs put their information in, they'll get an email notification that gives them kind of the next step. So I don't want Bert coming at me telling me that's VPE stuff, but I do want you to know that as you step through all of that, it sounds like the person that came on earlier just said when you actually finish a pathway, they've changed some of that process. So hopefully that's new information for me.
Kelly,
Hopefully we'll get some documents.
Kelly, I have one other
Thank
thing
you.
to add
Okay.
at this level.
Yeah.
And this is very important. This is confusing. And this is confusing because we equate speeches with projects, and it's 2 different things. And I even saw you kind of gloss over it. Evaluation feedback is 3 projects. Until you do speech number 1, have it evaluated, do speech number 2, and do an evaluation, you can't complete that section. So that's 3 different items. And people think, oh, it's only 2 speeches. No, it's 2 speeches, and you're supposed to give an evaluation. At level 1, you're being trained how to do evaluations. And you may not have to give it online, but you have to give it to a coach or somebody so that they can see that you've got the gist of it.
Yeah.
And I saw when Pathways first kicked out, I remember somebody come to me, oh, I'm already through. I'm finished level 1. I said, and you've done your 4 speeches? No, I did 3. I'm like, you kind of missed it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit
Well,
more
and that's,
to
you know
this.
what, I mean, Bert, that's where you work with your VPE and you don't fly these things solo. You know,
Right,
I mean, I
right.
said earlier at the beginning, we're better together.
Right.
So it's not a bad idea to check in with a VPE, share your screen with them. Lots of different ways to do that nowadays, and just say, hey, here's where I'm at. Is there anything that you notice I'm missing? Because again, my point with all of this is I don't want people to find Pathways and all the minutia so intimidating, because I know members like this, that they don't even touch it because they're thinking, because they're rule followers, I'm going to mess something up. Give yourself some grace. At the end, go back to your why. Why are you in Pathways? Why are you in Toastmasters? And if we've got to go back and check a box or do a pre-assessment or post-assessment to move on, y'all, that's no big deal. We'll go back and do it. For me, from my perspective, let's learn, let's improve, let's enjoy this. If I go into this straight from a rule follower perspective, I'm going to hate it. I'm not going to have any fun, and I'm not going to learn anything. So again, we all have different styles. And that's why I so appreciate Bert's input, because it's obvious he and I have 2 different styles. Do what's going to work for you. But what I've seen over the last 15 months, and obviously we've had other bigger issues, is people have just stopped being in this because it seems like one more thing that's on their to-do list, one more piece of minutia to go through. And what I want to do is just kind of get you all back into your motivation again. When I did that speech this past week, I was fired up to keep going again. And that's what I know I needed. You know, there's that old Zig Ziglar quote out there that says something like motivation is like taking a shower. You have to do it daily. And I know I need that. I know I need some sort of daily dose to keep myself moving. So Bert, thanks for the feedback. Any other questions? I want to be mindful of time.
2 comments.
Yeah.
One, in level ones and also like the other levels, it's confusing to know how many quote projects or tasks that you have to do. And it's like icebreaker, you have one and it says minimum requirements 4, but like the other guy said, in evaluation, there are 3 things in there that you got to do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tell you that, and it's hard to understand that. The
Thank
other
you.
thing, and so, and that's what Toastmasters need to go back and just clarify that. The other thing is maybe Toastmasters need to give a person in each club if the club member asks them to allow them to go in and manage pathways for a member. And as the member go through, the only thing that the member needs is that project plan. And once that project plan is complete, that the pathway, the club pathway person go in and complete all of this stuff.
Thank you. So one of the things that I will say to that is, because I know I'm running out of time, is that's where I would ask my VPE for help. I know on the VPE side, there's a lot of back end and backstage, if you will, where there may be opportunities there. Now, the full details of it, I don't know, but I hear what you're saying, because it can be a little bit daunting in terms of the driving and what needs to be done. So yeah, I hear you all on that. There's still things to learn for sure. By the way, as you were talking, one of the things that I like about that PDF, if you will, is this is the full project. And this is what would help me kind of figure out everything that I need to do in this path. Because sometimes for me, going through the screens, I just can't get that 50,000-foot view to know, like you were saying, all of those little details that I've got to hit. So I will go through this PDF and kind of pick through, and you'll see on page 15, there's a project checklist. So just for grins, let's go to page 15. I'm probably not doing this the most efficient way. And Kristen, let me know where we're at on time, because I want to be mindful of that. So this project
You have 10 minutes.
includes.
Yeah,
Okay,
but well,
thank
you have
you.
about 9 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. So it says here, project checklist. This project includes a 5 to 7 minute speech, incorporating feedback from your first speech into a second 5 to 7 minute speech, and then third, serving as a speech evaluator. So that gives me kind of my bottom line of what all this project entails. And that may be helpful. Does that help speak to, I can't change Toastmasters, but does that help to speak to some of your question?
Kelly, I want you to know this is a knowledge. It helped me because when I first started in Pathways on my first assignment, I didn't realize I needed to do a follow-up speech. But when I read the document, it became clear of what I needed to do in each of the projects. So thank you for showing me where that is.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I mean, a lot of this is learn as you go, you know, and I will tell you, even if I read all the instructions, I'm not going to retain them. I'd love to say I'm that smart, but I'm not. And so this is why I just kind of go back to my style, what works for me. This helps me to bottom line it. And then I'm cognizant of those pieces. And then kind of going back to what we've all said, if I don't understand it all, y'all, we were not meant to do this life alone. I know that sounds a little philosophical. I just go get help. There are so many seasoned Toastmasters. There are people that, I mean, there are people on this call, y'all live and breathe Toastmasters, and I'm going to find you and say, help a girl out. So don't feel like you're all on your own on this stuff, because I want, my personal hope is that you enjoy this, is that you get that growth and learning, because then it's just, you're going to see residual benefits in every area of your life. I've seen it. I've lived it. I know it's true. What else, y'all? Thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you on this morning. I'm learning too. I like it.
Kelly, can you go back again and show us where to upload the evaluation forms?
So are we going back to the uploading documents? Is that what you're asking for, Kristen?
Once the evaluation is received, let's say I
Uh-huh.
did an icebreaker speech, I received the evaluation form from my evaluator, and I want to upload that to my Pathways site.
Let me go This is one of my frustrations is that I just can't hit back and go back to the Toastmasters site from a navigation perspective. So bear with me just a minute. Keep that one open.
It's not just
Yeah.
evaluation resources. You can load any documents in there.
Yep.
If you have a PowerPoint slideshow that goes with your speech, or a scan of your handwritten notes or whatever that you want to retain related to your projects, you can put it all in there, anything you want.
So let me go into Basecamp here.
Kelly, a
Yeah.
faster way to get back to this screen
Please.
is if you look on the very top where it had a little home button. It looked
All right,
like
I'm
a
gonna
little
go
picture of
there.
a home in front of your, like, go back to where it lists, go back out of this screen.
All right, let me go into my path.
Well,
Let's start
look
there.
at, yes.
All right, open
Click on
curriculum.
Yeah, click on one of the paths, open curriculum.
Or I could cheat and do open a new tab, but yeah, let's take it
If
your
you
way.
look on the top of the screen where it says effective coaching, right in front of that looks like a little picture of a home. Click on that.
Thank you. Okay, you're officially my hero. You get hero of the morning. Thank you. All right, so back to open curriculum is right here. And then my documents. Kristen, is this what you're asking for, where you can go in and upload your files for each of your level? I'll pull up the chat on my other screen and see if this gets me where we want.
While you're doing that, Kelly, Becky
Yeah.
Beggerly has her hand raised as well.
Okay, good, because I cannot see everyone. So I love that. Thank you for the help. Becky, what you got, ma'am?
Well, I was just trying to tell everyone that these new members that you have, this is not difficult, but it's also not intuitive.
Yeah.
If you're new to something, take a little time and walk a new member through that first project. Tell them, give them the Cliff Notes version. You can go back in there and you can read all of these things and you will get more out of the project and your education that you're trying to do. But Cliff Notes version, one icebreaker, one repeat icebreaker, or include evaluation speech, one evaluation where you know what it's like to give and receive an evaluation, and then one research your topic speech. When you've done that, walk them through the process, go through, click everything they need to click so that they have level 1 down and finished, and they know from then on out, you've got to do this on your own, my friend, the rest of the time.
I like your Cliff Notes analogy. That's really good, Becky. Thank you.
It just helps when they know up front, and it will save you some trouble later on. It's a little more daunting and more involved, but hey, this is a new member and they're going to also judge your club and how you behave with them and how you help them moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, what I've learned as a VPE is keep offering to help that person, because sometimes it takes a little bit of, hey, do you want to get together next week for 30 minutes? I'll walk you through pathways. Because there is, you know, people join, then they kind of go through and they look at things, and everybody's kind of got a different perspective on how they engage. So again, work within your own style, but that is one thing that I do as VPE is every meeting I'm reminding people, hey, I'm here for you. Where are you at on your pathways? How can I help you? And then we can get into the pieces. So that's really good. Somebody put in the chat, tiniest icon ever. Yeah, things are getting smaller for me in my 50s. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Whoever showed us the home screen, the little home, the little house. And again, kind of going back to those ubiquitous icons, y'all, that's where you can start to train your eye. Look for settings wheels. You'll see I'm in the top right of my screen. Look for the little house. That takes you home. That is something you're going to start to see across all kinds of platforms and applications. So as you get used to looking for those, just like you got used to looking for that little diskette to save, it's going to help you from a navigation perspective. Open items, what's missing?
Kelly, this is Stacy. I want to add one thing for everybody. I know there are things in here that are frustrating, things that maybe you don't like or you think could be improved. That's great. Guess what? They've made changes to pathways already. If there's something that you think needs improvement or that you don't like, let Toastmasters know. Send them an email and let them know. They will listen. Now, that doesn't mean they'll change it tomorrow, but if enough people complain about it, they are listening and they will make changes. So that, at least that's good news.
Stacy, thank you. I mean, I know that since Pathways came out, I feel like it can be navigated better now than it was before. I remember at the beginning, I thought, oh, how am I going to figure this one out? And sometimes it just takes, for me, I got to get in there and pick around with it and just kind of play and then field questions like we've done today. Sometimes people are thinking of things that you haven't thought about. And so sometimes it's just having that dialogue. So that's really helpful, Stacy. Thank you. I've learned that using the Toastmasters chat when you go to the website, sometimes just chatting with them is a useful tool as well.
Can I have a break, Kristen? Or are we going straight into Donna?
I think that we're going to go straight into Donna's presentation. We do have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So if you wanted to wrap things up, Kelly, we'll go ahead and go right into Donna's presentation.
All right, sounds good. Again, just what I would keep in mind is we've got some basics that have come out of this. If you haven't chosen your path, will you do that for yourself in the next couple of weeks or do it this afternoon after our conference today? Take a moment and get in there and pick a path. Take that assessment. Don't like what they chose? Pick what you want. You've got 11 to choose from. And just get in there and pick around. Think about what your goals are for the rest of this year going into next year. That could be personal, it could be professional. And pick something that's going to be useful to you. And maybe take the should out of it. Well, I should pick. Yeah, I kind of gave up that word. So think about what is going to get you motivated, get you excited again about your Toastmasters learning. So if I can encourage you, if you get nothing else done, make sure you've got that path chosen and start that icebreaker. You know, I was talking to somebody just yesterday, a person that I mentor, and he's been working on his icebreaker for 2 months. I said, rip the Band-Aid and give that sucker. Now I said it better than that. So if you have put off getting that first speech out there, Toastmasters is your safe place. I know that we tend to be harder on each other in these officer trainings, but one of the beautiful things about Toastmasters is this is a safe place to practice, to screw up, to try again and get better. Every time I present to you all, I get better, and I'm thankful for that. So if I can be of any help to any of you all, my email is very simple. It's kelly@kellyknowles.net. I'll throw it in the chat. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity this morning. Looking forward to hearing Donna, because I know Donna's got a super creative presentation that she's going to want us all involved in. So I'm looking forward to our next session, everybody. It's good to see y'all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Kelly. What a fabulous presentation. I always love watching Pathways presentations because everybody has got such a different flair and a different idea going into Pathways and how to navigate around. Yours was so good. It was so, and actually I learned a lot today. This is excellent. Thank you, thank you. Okay, our next trainer, we're just going to go right into our next training session.